Okay, let's unpack this. We're diving into a concept that seems to be really gaining traction in how people think about building software.
Hmm.
The stack of sources you shared, especially those bits from vibe coding platforms 2025, they keep mentioning this idea, vibe coding.
Right. And it's, much more than just the technical act of writing code.
Okay.
The sources describe it as creating inflow, like really embracing experimentation,
Mm-hmm.
collaborating deeply,
Mm-hmm.
and sort of blending creativity, AI, and community right into how you develop things.
Exactly. So our mission here in this deep dive is to really cut through these sources, understand what vibe coding means in practice,
Yeah.
and look at the platforms they're highlighting as being, right at the forefront of this.
And figure out why it matters, right? Why this shift from just pure output to the kind of experience of coding.
Yeah, what does finding your coding vibe even look like? Seems a bit abstract.
Well, I think it looks like tools and environments that actually support different ways of thinking, different ways of building,
Yeah.
allowing developers to connect with their work and, importantly, with each other on a deeper level. It's enabling that state where, creation just feels natural, maybe even energizing.
That makes sense. Okay, let's jump into these platforms then. The sources mention 5 specific ones that seem to embody this vibe coding idea, but each in its own way.
They do. And they sort of present Replit as almost a flagship example
Right.
because it really nails that instant social collaborative piece.
Replit's been around, yeah. But the sources describe its core nature now as this really lightweight, cloud-based, inherently social space.
Mm.
The key thing seems to be you can just jump in, start coding immediately, no setup hassles.
And that instant access, that's definitely part of its vibe for sure. But the real core, what the sources really emphasize, is its strength in real-time collaboration.
Right, that multiplayer mode, I saw that. The description on the source makes it sound genuinely fun, actually. It says, coding together feels like playing a game of Minecraft. You're building the same thing, seeing each other's cursors, moving around live.
It really takes that activity, which is often so solitary, and makes it properly shared.
Yeah.
And the sources also mention how AI fits in with their Ghostwriter AI.
Mm.
It's right there, offering suggestions, helping debug while you're coding alongside other people.
Huh. So the vibe here is very much about shared creation, getting that immediate feedback with AI sort of helping out.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And those shareable REPLs they mention for showing off your work or letting others remix it.
Yeah, I saw that.
That totally fits that social experimental feel too.
Right.
So a perfect picture of this vibe, according to the sources, might be, say, a group building a web app together, totally live. Maybe in a classroom, maybe just collaborating remotely on a video call. It's about that collective energy.
Okay, so that's the highly collaborative end. Then the sources seem to pivot to cursor AI, which sounds like a different take on using AI in coding.
Yes, very different. Cursor is presented as fundamentally reimagining the code editor itself, specifically VS Code, but with AI just woven right into its fabric.
Right.
The vibe here is really AI-first development.
Conversing with code, that's the phrase the source used. That's interesting.
It is.
It's not just like a separate chatbot you ask questions. It's embedded in how you interact with the code itself.
Exactly right. You can highlight a block of code, ask the AI questions right there about that code, tell it to refactor a component,
Wow.
or even just brainstorm different ways to implement something,
Yeah.
all directly within the editor window.
That totally changes the feel of coding alone, doesn't it?
Absolutely.
The sources describe the vibe as being like pair programming with a genius assistant. So it's you and the AI kind of working through the problem together.
Yeah, it elevates the editor from just being a text tool to being more like a dynamic partner in the process.
Hmm.
And the features enabling this vibe, they include that seamless inline AI coding and refactoring, getting those instant ChatGPT-powered insights while you're editing,
Uh-huh.
and how it blends that creative exploration with, precise code manipulation.
So a really compelling use case mention is refactoring an old project. You're cleaning up the code, but at the same time, you're actually learning new patterns because the AI is suggesting them and explaining why.
Mm-hmm. Makes improvement a learning process.
Exactly. Okay, so next, the sources shift gears again. Bolt. This one seems focused on a very different kind of flow, more visual.
Ah, yes, Bolt. It's described as really blurring the lines between designing something and actually developing it.
How to do that?
It uses what they call a hybrid drag-and-drop plus code interface.
Okay, interesting.
So this is probably for the coder who thinks visually, Or maybe someone who just wants to iterate super fast on user interfaces. It offers a really clean workspace, a smart component system, instant deployment. It's all designed to keep you moving quickly.
That sounds incredibly efficient. The vibe seems tailored for coders who want to, like the source says, ship fast and express ideas visually, less time writing boilerplate part, more time actually seeing the result.
Totally. The key benefits highlighted are that integrated visual and code-based builder, seeing real-time feedback and live previews instantly.
Ah, that's huge.
And, importantly, eliminating that sometimes frustrating context, switching between, say, a design tool like Figma and your code editor. It keeps your focus unified.
Right. So the use case that jumps out is like rapidly prototyping a mobile app. Build the UI, hook up some back-end logic, and you could have something shareable in, what, under an hour?
That's the idea, a flow state driven by seeing those immediate visual results.
Okay. So from shipping fast visually, the sources then introduce Lovable, which they talk about in a really unique way, not just a platform, but a movement.
Yeah, that phrasing stood out.
A movement. For
Yeah.
community, this feels like a very different flavor of vibe coding.
It is.
It's all centered around building in public.
Absolutely. It's explicitly highlighted for like indie developers, people working on side projects. The whole point is sharing your progress as you go, getting feedback in real time, finding encouragement from others.
Huh. So coding moves out of your private editor and into a kind of shared social space.
Pretty much.
The source says it feels like a blend of GitHub, maybe Twitter, and Notion, but specifically for code with soul. That phrase really captures something.
It really does. It's about the journey, right? The passion project and connecting with others who are on similar paths.
Yeah.
And the features creating this vibe are all centered around that.
Yeah.
Sharing your builds transparently, posting project logs, and maybe even roadmaps,
Okay.
and getting that community validation and support along the way.
So the perfect scenario here isn't necessarily launching a huge product, but maybe starting a fun side project. You share updates, the community cheers you on, maybe throws out some ideas.
Exactly.
It's less about having a finished, polished thing right away and more about the collaborative, encouraging process of building.
Well put.
Yeah.
Then finally, the sources present Windsurf, which offers yet another distinct vibe, almost the opposite of the public, collaborative ones we've just discussed.
Right, Windsurf is described as being built for flow state creation and solo dev focus. This sounds like the tool for, deep work.
That's precisely its aim.
Yeah.
It achieves this vibe through a radically minimalist UI, very keyboard-centric navigation to keep your hands on the keys, and just the right amount of automation, enough to help you along without actually breaking your concentration.
Okay, so if Replit is the bustling town square and Lovable is maybe the indie cafe,
Yeah,
Windsurf is like the quiet, focused studio, the calm, focused cousin, I think the source called it, ideal for just blocking out all the noise.
exactly. It's all about getting into that state where you lose track of time because you're just so deeply immersed in the code.
Right.
And the features supporting this slow state include that distraction-free interface,
Yeah.
a seamlessly integrated AI copilot that feels like it's just part of the editor, not an add-on,
Uh-huh.
and even tools like a focus timer, maybe some journaling features, session insights to support those deep work habits.
That's fascinating tools designed not just for the act of coding, but for cultivating a specific state of mind while you're doing it. The classic use case they mention is perfect. Locking yourself in for a weekend build-a-thon, totally immersed,
Yeah.
and you emerge with a polished MVP because you were actually able to stay in that focused zone the whole time.
So looking across all 5 of these platforms, it becomes pretty clear that vibe coding isn't really about one single way to work, is it?
No, not at all.
It's more about recognizing that different developers, different kinds of projects, maybe even just different moods on different days, they call for different environments that really support that feeling of flow.
Absolutely. So bringing it back to the core concept from the sources then,
Right.
what's the ultimate takeaway here, if you had to distill it?
I think the central message pulled from these sources is actually quite powerful and pretty simple. Vibe coding isn't about speed, it's about flow.
Right. Flow over just speed.
Yeah. It's shifting the emphasis from just how quickly you can churn out lines of code to finding, well, joy and effectiveness in the process itself, whether that comes through collaboration or AI partnership, visual expression, community connection, or just that deep solo focus.
And these platforms you've discussed are basically prime examples of how tools are evolving to actually enable those different kinds of creative flow states.
Exactly. They're designed to help you get into and then stay in the mode that works best for you at that particular moment.
Which leads right to that final kind of thought-provoking idea the sources leave us with. It's almost like a challenge, isn't it?
Yeah.
Code at the speed of vibe.
Yes. It really encourages all of us, developers, creators,
Hmm.
to think about what our personal coding vibe actually looks like. What does your most productive flow state feel like?
Hmm.
And then maybe seek out the tools and the environments that help you achieve that rather than just defaulting to the traditional ways of working because, well, that's how it's always been done.
A really interesting concept to consider. What helps you get into your zone? Okay, and with that thought, we'll wrap up this particular deep dive into vibe coding and the platforms shaping its future.